Hey, it's Harry. You're about to listen to Building, the podcast charting our journey to starting 1225, the audience first growth marketing agency. We want our podcast to be a very open and transparent look around the journey of starting an agency. And you're about to listen to one of the very first episodes where we haven't even decided the agency name, so you'll notice that does not get mentioned throughout these early episodes. We hope you enjoy listening. Obviously, we are producing a list of target accounts, but they are separate to, I guess, our initial batch of outreach, which is very much focused on existing connections that we believe we've worked well with in the past, that we see genuine opportunity for growth with, and also obviously balancing the fact that you alluded to it earlier, that we do have non-competes in our contracts, and we have no intention of breaking those intentionally, right? The question I've been asked a few times from we have a small group of people who obviously know of our plans in a bit more detail, have asked why we spent so much time, energy, and genuine money on this part of the puzzle. But from your research, would you say, Brennan, something crazy like 7,000 agencies in the UK, and we know that the thing that is gonna see that initial burst of growth, which is what we need in that first year, is going to be positioning that allows us to do that. That sets up all of our marketing activity, from the events that we're going to speak at, to the newsletters that we're going to publish, to the podcasts that we're going to be doing in 6-12 months time. So if we think about getting capacity wrong, what does that mean? Well, it means that consultants and people on the ground are overworked. It means that as a result, client outputs are probably going to be worse. The creativity of strategy and all that sort of stuff isn't going to be as optimal as it could be. But it also means that if we look at senior managers at larger agencies, or Brendan, when we first start making hires, they get dragged down more and more into the day-to-day. And the reason obviously they're in those positions is to not be in the day-to-day, is to be able to make more holistic agency calls or start thinking about the future of their departments and things like that. And it's so hard to get right. Now, hopefully, I think we're close to getting a fairly custom-built solution that's going to work for us. But I just wanted to flag it, like I said, bring a topic to the table that says this is something that we're going to need to focus on early when we launch.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 4 of the Almost to Be Named podcast. We're going to get to the name shortly. The recording date for historical purposes is the 20th of the 4th, 2023. This is done this way because we are charting our journey to starting and then scaling up an agency. My name's Brendan, and I'm joined as ever by my co-founder, Harry. So Harry, we'll get into the swing of things, but you saw a stat on BBC News today, which is actually really quite interesting. 75% of podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes. We're on episode 4, so we're in the top 25%.
I was just about to say, I thought you were going to go with the 75% fail, not the 25% go beyond. And I was like, gotta flip that. We're in the top 25% of podcasts. That's my takeaway. Anyway, if that's the barrier, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get a few listeners, but we are recording this 3 months in advance. So, yeah, we'll get listeners.
We should do. If not, I mean, we'll get 2, right? I'll listen to it while I'm out on the dog walk, and I'm sure you will as well.
Exactly. And yeah, this is a learning curve for both of us. I've never recorded podcasts before, so I am open to feedback as I try to improve my intros. I've been tasked with the intros to every podcast, so I will try my best. I thought that was more slick than any others. For one thing, I managed to introduce myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So Brendan's been back through listening to the 3 we've recorded so far, and not once has he introduced himself. And to be fair, maybe I should have introed you if you were introing me. But yeah, it is what it is on that front. But you mentioned there around getting feedback and comments and things like that on how people are finding the episodes. Something potentially, Brennan, to put on your radar is I have invited somebody onto the podcast next week for some live feedback, which
perfect.
I've asked for it to be completely cold, in the sense of I don't want to see it beforehand. You're not going to see it beforehand, and we'll hear it for the first time on the podcast when we speak to this person next week. So something for us both to look forward to, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do video record these episodes as well. So the reactions, we may release them on social media and so on, the faces when we get the feedback. I mean, I hope this episode's better than the last one, at least, because we had to stop halfway through because my washing machine decided to sprint across the room and shake the whole house to the foundation. So, yeah, that might be an interesting piece of feedback for us next episode.
That's true, actually. We started, we jumped on a call at like, 25 to 4 or something, and we went through some quick audio checks. I didn't ask, is the washing machine on or is it off?
It's off and it's safely secured where it should be.
Okay, so we should be fine for the next 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'd say so. Fingers crossed. I mean, the doorbell did go just before we pressed record as well. So let's go with it. And let's get to the first part of the kind of agenda, if you will, because you're very professional and you write notes out for each show that we do so that I know what I'm talking about. And I will contribute to these notes occasionally. So the first step is the podcast name. And you gave me an idea last week. And actually, I must admit, I do really like it. And I think we should go for it. What is your name?
Well, before I get to that, what I find interesting is you just called out the fact that I produced the show notes, I believe is what the industry call it. Which I think if anybody from our current agency is listening to is going to find really funny because I'm notorious for not writing anything down ever. So that's quite amusing. But on this front, so yeah, last week I put a name forward, which is Building, for the podcast. So I think that encapsulates everything that we're trying to do. Like we are building from nothing. Like at the time of recording, we have an idea, starting to execute against that idea, but we have no clients either. Something that will come up, I guess, on the status updates section. So I think that works well. However, I'm going to argue against my own idea here, which is, and I think I referenced this last week, that I haven't done any research.
Hold on. I've spent a week getting to grips with the idea and I really like it. And now you're telling me you're not going to go for it.
I'm not saying that we're not going to go for it. I'm just making sure that you have all the information to make your decision. It's like that.
Okay, fair.
It's like that sales technique when you tell everybody all the reasons why they don't want to work with you, and then they will come back giving you the reasons they do want to work with you, and hopefully you close them. So maybe I'm just doing a bit of that on you. But
okay.
At the time, I had done no research. I just thought of a name, put the name out there. I have since been away, had a look at the podcast channels, had a look on Spotify, done some searching. The only thing that I find is if you search for the word building on Spotify as an example, there's no podcast with that name, but you are very much in the construction industry. First of all, who knew? Very niche, a lot of construction podcasts. But second of all, if you search that at the moment, like they're the categories that it is associated with, but I think more generally less concerned about that because we can create the podcast, we can say what categories it fall into. So I do also agree that we should stick with it, but I was just making sure you had all the information before making your decision.
Yeah, of course. With everything like this, I'm probably the slightly more risk averse than you are. I also did my research on podcast channels, including Spotify. There is no podcast with just the name Building, so I think that works. Yeah, I've got some weird kind of podcasts coming up, some about bodybuilding, for instance, and stuff like that. So there are other niches there. I also tried adding potential words after building, like performance or, agencies and stuff like that. Some of those are kind of taken or aligned to more popular podcasts like Jake Humphrey's High Performance. If you put building performance there, you get that as well. So potentially that kind of changes the aspect there. I like building. I think it's simple. Is one word. You could potentially add to it in the future. So when we're further down the line with our journey, we might want to start adding words like scaling, building and scaling, for instance, to carry the name on. But my vote is out of all of the podcast name. I mean, my initial suggestion was, what the fuck are we doing? I don't think that's going to fly. Plus it's taken already. So yeah, I think I vote for building.
Okay. I think we have a deal. Yeah. I would heavily veto what the fuck are we doing. So if we're both agreed on building it is. So next week when we record, I expect the intro to include that.
Yeah, okay. So the intro is going to pop firstly, but it's also going to have the actual name for the first time ever. So yeah, good. Agenda point one sorted. The next we'll move on to a status update, kind of an update on where we've got to. Harry, firstly, we've obviously got the bank account set up, and I believe you might have put some pennies into that bank account.
We do. We have some pennies in our pot now. Our bank account isn't zero, which is great. Sadly, that is our own money at this stage, and not from the sale of any services or products yet. But that will come. We know we need to incur some costs along the way before we move towards that launch date, hopefully early July. So, yeah, money is in the account. We can start buying things. We've already started buying some stuff, so we're pretty much good to go. I guess getting our personal admin out the way on the podcast, and I'll move closer to the microphone for this. We also need your half of the pot, Brendan, but we're getting there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working on it at the moment. I didn't realise I had not changed my address on my investments there. So that's all gone through. It's taken a couple of days to come through, but when I've got it, I will place it in the bank account.
Mate, to be fair, not so bad. So when you mentioned that to me, I was like, oh shit, I bet I haven't done that since I moved house either. So one of the accounts, you can't deal or take funds out for 21 days after changing the address.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yes, there are some not insignificant pennies wrapped up there at the moment. So thank you for that reminder as well. So I'm sorting that as we speak.
Yeah, it's a good learning curve for anything that we sign up to in future. We need to read the fine print for certain bits, the flexibility that we need for certain things, especially when it comes to business and kind of moving business money around. So yeah, we're learning all the time when we do this.
I was going to say, I haven't sent you the fine print for the office lease yet. You'll enjoy that. That's some real bedtime reading.
Oh, great! I look forward to that. We've got to make sure that in the excitement of this phase of the journey where we're in, we still make time for all of that kind of bedtime reading, shall we call it, on everything that we sign up to, because we need to know what we're getting ourselves into.
It'll be all right.
Nice. I think we can segue nicely onto the next status update. Sales conversations. Now, this is an area that I've probably had a little bit of success in.
I'd say so.
I won't name the people that I'm kind of talking to, but the first one kind of got chatting to a former client, not at the agency we're currently at. So don't worry, no non-competes have been affected or anything like that. We just started up a nice conversation via email, but they seem interested. I'm trying to get a call in with them and potentially go meet them face to face, take them out for a beer or a glass of wine, because I know that's what they prefer. So that's one of them. The other one, I've got a meeting with another contact, former client as well, and I'm just going to see where they are in their journey. They've got a couple of new opportunities on the horizon that I think we can obviously help with. So that conversation's tomorrow. So I'll update you on the next podcast on that front. So yeah, that's one area that I'm actually doing okay. I'm quite pleased with. And surprisingly for me, I don't see myself as a salesperson, but I'm doing okay at the minute.
I think many people would disagree with that. I think in our dynamic as we move forward, I think you will be principal in chief of the sales department. You have a natural way, as you always hit me over the head with, you even mentioned it earlier today. Remember your ABCs, and I could not believe that came out of your mouth. But it did. So yeah, I think in that dynamic, it's definitely going to be you on that front. Something we spoke about the other day, right? And maybe come onto this when I bring a topic to the table later. I have been very much deep in spreadsheets this week, which is not really where you find enjoyment, but it is something that I find enjoyment in. So there'll be some natural dynamics, I think, that start to show themselves over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've definitely been much stronger on numbers, and I'm much better with kind of words, I suppose. Maybe not from this podcast, maybe I won't show it that well, but I'm trying, okay? So yeah, I know that you were kind of contacting some old contacts of yours. Any progress on that front?
I have made contact. I can't say it's been reciprocated so far from my side. So I don't know if my choice so far has been the best. And obviously, we are producing a list of target accounts, but they are separate to, I guess, our initial batch of outreach, which is very much focused on existing connections that we believe we've worked well with in the past, that we see genuine opportunity for growth with. And also, obviously, balancing the fact that you alluded to it earlier, that we do have non-competes in our contracts, and we have no intention of breaking those like intentionally, right? Like if a client comes to us, then certainly something that we would consider, but actively pursuing that is not really where we're at. So we're using historic existing networks, and it's obviously going to take some time for some of those relationships to build back up. But sadly, from my side, nothing to report yet, but I do plan on doubling down between now and when we next record. So hopefully next time round, I have some more positive news to report.
Very good. Well, again, that ties in nicely with our target accounts progress. On the last episode, we both committed to 25 target accounts each onto the list. I'm going to ask you first because I assume or hope that you've done more than me on this front so far this week. We're recording midweek, so I've still got time. So I will put that caveat in place. How are you getting on with your target accounts?
I have a more fun idea. How about I count down from 1 to 3 and then we both say our numbers at the same time?
My number at the moment is 0.
So is mine. Absolute carnage. But it's been a busy week. We've spent most of the week together. We know what we've been doing. So I think in a similar position to you, at least at this stage of our growth as well, which is obviously 0 starting from building, if you like.
Yeah.
Is we still have the weekends. Now, once we launch, this becomes our full-time gig. Like that isn't going to be my go-to, but at the minute it is. And I still think, like you said, we're recording midweek, 25 between now and the end of this week into next week when we review our weekly commitments. I don't see it being a problem and I'm confident I'll get it done. But yeah, so far this week, it hasn't happened for me.
This weekend's a busy one as well. We are both at a colleague's wedding this weekend for the whole of Saturday. I don't know how our heads are going to be on the Sunday either. I presume I'll probably have to pick you up and drive you to the venue once it's safe for us both to drive to pick up your car as well. That's the current plan anyway. So yeah, lots of activity going on the weekend that we need to consider as well. So yeah, for the next podcast, I commit to the 25. I will get them done. It is the bane of my life. I really don't like doing it. I don't know why. It takes me forever because I scout through it and I'm trying to do it in the most realistic way possible. Like, even though it's a target account and they match ICPs, I'm trying to dig in and get as much information on the contacts and the people that I'm looking at to make it a valuable resource for us moving forward. And I just find it takes a lot of time, like sometimes even like 15 to 20 minutes per account. So that shows the potential kind of time investment that we're putting into the target accounts. Having said all of that, it is critical to our kind of plans in the first couple of months. So need to prioritize that over many of the other conversations. Obviously, the 2 sales conversations that I'm currently engaged with, I think they're number one. Hopefully get one of them on board. That would be the ideal situation. Well, ideal would be both.
Both. Come on, shoot for the stars. But
yeah, absolutely. So cool. Okay, that's a black mark against both of us on that front, which we will work to improve. First draft of the brand story has come back from our what do you call him? Brand storyteller, Jack. Harry, do you want to give the update because you're leading on this front?
Yeah, I can take this. So I think the first thing for us to say, Brendan, is we have a very clear idea of what this agency is going to be, what the value proposition is going to be, and everything like that. So when we say brand story and positioning, we are working with an advisor on this and someone who's producing a lot of the copy for the site and all those sorts of things. But the real reason that we've sought Jack's expertise is to be able to distill down our positioning into a sentence, for example. And I think we'll both admit, like, that's not our skill set, and it's not going to be the skill set that we build this agency upon either. So we know when we need to get outsourced resource, and I guess people who are experts in things. And this is one area, and it was also our first significant investment. So we obviously did the deal, we signed up on that front, and we've now received the first draft of this brand story back. And I think you said Jack's going to be joining the podcast in a couple of weeks to walk through the entire process. But in terms of where we're at for now, we received, after consultation with us and a series of interviews, if you like, Jack has gone away and he's produced 5 options that break down elements of what we have said to him over the last couple of weeks and with the documents that we shared, and given us 5 options of potential brand stories. And I think I'm pretty happy and pleased to report that it was pretty, like, feedback was pretty seamless, like, from our side, Brennan. I think we jumped on a call, said this isn't far away at all. There are 3 stories out of the 5 that we resonated with in different ways. So the challenge was to mold those 3 into the exact brand story, if you like, that sits where we want to go, where we want to take the agency, and probably beyond that as well. Because obviously our growth plans, which I think we will come on to, I don't know if when we launch the agency, launch a positioning, we'll go into that much detail, but I do think there's a world in which maybe in a year's time, so July 2024, we sit down, we do a screen share, we go through what our plan was then versus how things are developed, and ultimately what that 3-5 year vision is as well. Because I'm happy to build in public in that sense and make it very obvious what we're trying to achieve. So we can go into some more detail there. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how things are going. First draft back, Jack replied today saying that he would echo our sentiments, that for him, our feedback was pretty seamless. He understands where we need to go. And I think we're due the second draft back by Saturday. So it is going to be a busy weekend for us, but yeah, very happy with how things are progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree entirely with what you're saying there. We know what we want to do. It's just presenting that in a clear way. And I think it's validation as well, in the sense of getting a professional to distill our ideas into something clear and coherent. Will it fly when it is clear and coherent on paper, on the web and so on? So it's interesting, that process. And it's also really eye-opening to see that kind of process and the different ways that one set of information can be turned into 5 different options. It was kind of strange to see that. So yeah, more on that as we go. Definitely an interesting process, and one that we've already spent probably the majority of our time crafting ourselves. So yeah, look forward to seeing how that comes out in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think so. I think the question I've been asked a few times from, we have a small group of people who obviously know of our plans in a bit more detail, have asked why we spent so much time, energy, and genuine money on this part of the puzzle. But there were, from your research, would you say, Brennan, something crazy like 7,000 agencies in the UK. And we know that the thing that is going to see that initial burst of growth, which is what we need in that first year, is going to be positioning that allows us to do that. That sets up all of our marketing activity, from the events that we're going to speak at, to the newsletters that we're going to publish, to the podcasts that we're going to be doing in 6-12 months' time. So this is the foundation. And if you were building a house, you'd probably want to invest in the foundations the most, right? So in our view, the right thing to be doing. And this is the beauty of the podcast. We can look back in a year's time and see if we made the right call or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also about a consistent approach, consistent kind of experience, because me and you might go off to different networking events or conferences and stuff. We want to be saying the same thing and making sure that people understand it in the same way as what we're both saying. We don't want to be both kind of saying bits over on the left-hand side of our proposition and bits on the right, or whatever it may be. It's about consistency. And once that kind of legwork is done and underway, it underpins pretty much everything else in our plan, and from our sales decks to our pitches to the website, and kind of how we even open up networking opportunities. So I'm well for it being a priority area.
All right, good, nice. So we've been recording for quite a while. Time seems to fly when we start doing this. Before we close out for this episode, I want to quickly bring a topic to the table, and you can pick which topic we go for. So I'll give you the top line and you can pick. So agency operations, in particular capacity planning. I alluded to it earlier, something that I've been spending a lot of time on recently. The future of SEO, again, why? Because this is what we're hedging our bets on. This is the future of what we'll be doing and what we'll be investing our time in, and our financial success or failure on. Or a topic that I know is very close to both our hearts and is going to be at the foundation of everything that we'll be doing, which is teamwork. So you can pick.
Is this a brief conversation or is this an episode? Because all three of those could be episode long, even more than an episode long kind of discussion.
I think they'll all probably have their individual episodes as time goes on. But for now, this is more I've been spending a lot of time on on three of these things. Want to say some stuff and you can pick which one.
Okay. Just because of the work that you've been doing and the kind of additional elements that have been fed back to you and requested, let's go for the operations and capacity planning, because for my team at the current agency, it's a big bugbear for them, and we need to make sure that it's as clear as possible for them, but also for the senior managers as well, who are in the operations day to day and need to know this kind of information, need to know it's covered. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, cool. So the first thing that I would say, and I don't mean this with any disrespect to the seniors of the agency listening, but I'm less fussed about the pieces that you made there. Like, yeah, of course, it's going to be great to have something that we've been working on that sets everybody up for success in the future. But primarily, this comes back to where we're going to be at and what we're building. And we spoke about it last week as well. Getting the operational side of a business right is arguably more important in the early phases, because then it becomes part of the culture and allow us to accelerate growth as we add more people, more clients, etc. over the years. And the biggest challenge I think we faced at all of the places that we've been is managing capacity. People invest huge amounts of money into tools to be able to do this. So things like Upwork, or I think it's called like Scoro or something is the latest version of this that's come to the forefront for a lot of agencies. But they all do some things really well and some things not so well. And I don't want to get into a conversation about like software here. My point is more, it's so hard to get right, but it has such a big impact. So if we think about getting capacity wrong, what does that mean? Well, it means that consultants and people on the ground are overworked. It means that as a result, like client outputs are probably going to be worse. The creativity of strategy and all that sort of stuff isn't going to be as optimal as it could be. But it also means that if we look at senior managers at larger agencies, or Brendan, when we first start making hires, they get dragged down more and more into the day-to-day. And the reason obviously they're in those positions is to not be in the day-to-day, is to be able to make more holistic agency calls or start thinking about the future of their departments and things like that. And it's so hard to get right. Now, hopefully, I think we're close to getting a fairly custom-built solution that's going to work for us. But I just wanted to flag it, like I said, bring a topic to the table that says this is something that we're going to need to focus on early when we launch in July.
Agreed. I like this segment. You know, this could be a regular segment on our podcast as well. But yeah, it's absolutely crucial for us to understand basically how we can maximize it for the benefit of everyone involved, including the clients, and, you know, ensuring that we get the best work, and consultants and the people in the delivery side aren't panicking or aren't stressing about kind of how busy they are, or kind of over-servicing, under-servicing. It helps solve so many agency issues if you get the right system in place from the get-go. So, yeah, completely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. So, again, like it only really seems to become higher in your priority list in terms of to get right or to work on the more senior you become, at least from my experience, which is a bit strange considering, like you said, Brent, like it has knock-on impacts everywhere. But I think because it only seems to come into people's like remits as they become more senior, it can feel like a bit of a dirty thing, because it feels like what you're actually being asked to do is get more from people, to extract more from people. And in a way you are, but the way that is taken is you want to exchange their time for as much money as possible. And, you know, like really get them as close to that capacity line as possible. But that's not it. Like we know, the more freedom, autonomy, the more time that people have, the more creativity that flows, the better the results become. like overall work enjoyment becomes better. So people spend more time in those roles and they progress in those roles quicker and all that sort of stuff. So it is absolutely the thing at the heart of everything. And the more I get into it, the more I enjoy it. But at the same time, the more challenges that we face. So I'm sure we'll have a podcast on this, like a whole podcast episode. But even I spent 3 days on it. Super happy with what has been produced. And then we get an edge case today, or not an edge case, but a case that we're going to see more and more regularly. I'm like tearing my hair out again. So, for example, you came to me and said, okay, well, we've just been able to get a sign off on a standardized 5% annual increase on a retainer. The challenge you have with that is that doesn't mean a consultant suddenly has 5% more time to work on that client account, because it's to maintain the same service. So how do you recognize that in your, I guess, project management and your account management and your billing, but not recognize that in the capacity? So every time I think I get close, I uncover something else or an edge case or whatever it may be. So I'm really enjoying it, which is why I wanted to speak about it. I think it is a challenge, but more than anything, I think it's that thing that we need to get right from day one. Because if we can get that right from day one, it becomes part of the culture, as I said, but also it sets us up for so much success, especially when it comes to scaling. And we have plans to scale this very rapidly. So if we can get this right now, taking the learnings from what my last 10 years, your last 15, we should be in a very good place.
Yeah, love it. Let's bring this back to the table next week.
Okay.
With one of the other options. We can maybe take it in turns so we can both step up onto the soapbox and talk about something. I will take teamwork. I can rant and rave about teamwork for weeks on end. So yeah, that one's mine. You can have a future of SEO next if you wish, or we can both join in on that one. So yeah, I think that's it. That's our show notes list gone through point by point. So we now come to our outro, or, the close of it, and we've settled on our tag to finish it all. So yeah, unless you've got anything else to add, Harry? No, shake of the head. So yeah, hope everyone enjoyed that episode. Swing well, putt true. To help us build our audience, please like, share and subscribe. If you listened on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. And if you watched us on YouTube, please leave a question or comment and we'll get back to you. Thank you.